You're listening to The Launchcast, the podcast about leadership, business, life, and growth with me, your host, George Andriopoulos.
It's like food for your ears.
George?
Yes, Dave?
Where do podcasts come from?
Well, when two dudes with microphones in their home offices like each other very much, they get together and they make a podcast.
And then they just see what happens?
Yes, then they do whatever they want, and a dad podcast is born. That's right, we have a brand new podcast coming out, and it is premiering on April 7th with our trailer and first 4 episodes. Dave, do you know what that podcast is called?
It's called the Over My Dad podcast, and it is a podcast, but it's not just for dads. I want to make that very clear. We got a lot of stuff. We got periodic guests. We got just conversation, wacky business ideas, opinions, nothing too wild. It's like a light Joe Rogan or like a really edgy Ellen show.
That was actually the original name for the show, the Edgy Ellen Show. And it is co-hosted by you, Dave Thompson.
That's right, and you, George Andriopoulos. I can pronounce your name, which we're halfway there.
We're halfway there. Guys, check us out. Every other Wednesday, we drop a new episode, but our first 4 episodes, April 7th. Don't forget, every other Wednesday, and check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, at Over My Dad Podcast. And are we on Twitter?
We are at Over My Dad Bod CST.
Join us for our movement towards nothing in particular.
See you there.
At this time, I'm going to ask that you fasten your seatbelts.
Launch sequence activated.
Launch sequence activated.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Launchcast. 61 episodes. Goosebumps, damn it. Episode 216. This one is called Life is a Sinatra Song. You're going to find out why in a couple of minutes. Thanks for joining me again for another episode of the Launchcast. But you know we have to do the whole deal, right? So here we go. It's the LaunchDad himself bringing you your favorite podcast on the planet. It's true. It's damn true. Right here as the beat drops. Into the black hole. What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Launchcast, episode 216. So glad to have you guys back. Just want to say a couple of things before we dive in with our guest today, who I'm so excited to have on for a number of reasons. What's going on here? We just did Leadership in 60 on episode 215. It was 60 episode retrospective. It was 60 minutes. We did a Clubhouse segment in there, and we got a lot of positive feedback on that. So I want to say to you guys that had a lot of positive feedback. We talked about leadership lessons from all of the leaders that we've had on here before. A ton of leaders. So go back, check out those episodes. I have sponsors. I get paid. Come on, please help me out here. Go back, listen to those episodes, check it out. Find out why other people are so in love with their favorite podcast on the planet. But no, seriously, guys, keep supporting. We appreciate it. And thank you so much for supporting our new podcast, the Over My Dad podcast, with me and Dave Thompson. We are having a blast doing that thing. It is it's been a good time taking the conversation to a different place, getting a little bit less serious, talking about some fun stuff, having comedians on, and the whole deal. So thanks for supporting that, and let's dive into this interview. Let me bring this handsome dude on screen. Hang on, here he comes. There he is.
I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet. Pawn and a king. I've been up and down, over and out, and I know one thing. Hey, what's going on? I thought I was going to be on the Dead Bod podcast. What is this leadership crap? What's going on here,
guys? We have today Scott Stanford. I'm going to do the quick bio and then talk to my buddy here. So Scott Stanford is a
Go ahead.
Seven-time Emmy Award-winning host, news, sports anchor, and commentator. Stanford is currently a studio host for WWE World Wrestling Entertainment. Been doing that since 2009. He's provided play-by-play and post-game coverage for the Yankees, the Giants, NBC Radio, CBS Radio, sports anchor, Pix 11, anchor with Sukanya, and man, this guy's done it all. And right now he's doing the Suki and Scott show on Facebook Live. Welcome to our guest, Scott Stanford. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you being here.
You know what that all means, bro? It means I couldn't hold the job and I had to just bounce around. Nobody wanted to keep me around. So here I am. Now I do card tricks for a living. See, this is what I do.
Man, I'm so excited to have you. I say we because it's just me, by the way, and it makes me look like I have a bigger show.
Who's this we? You and your popcorn machine
it's
in the
me,
back?
my popcorn. Fabrizio, my producer, who's not here right now.
Fabrizio, on the day I'm on, he takes the day off, right?
Fabrizio.
Right? I love it. Sounds like a cologne.
I got to tell you, man, I'm so enjoying the Suki and Scott show on Facebook Live. I catch you guys now almost every night that you're on, and I started. Well, first of all, I got in contact with you because Sukanya Kristen was on the show, and she was amazing, and I got her because Lisa Mateo was on the show a couple of months ago.
Yes.
So I'm just going around. I'm going around.
And listen, that was your first mistake. You went to them before me, and now, you know, you got me after those two clowns. So here we are. I'm very excited, my friend. By the way, before we get into this interview, breaking news today.
Tell me.
And I know this is airing pretty quickly. Bill and Melinda Gates just announced that they're getting divorced. I mean, if they can't keep it together, the Gateses,
there's no hope.
Who can, bro? Who can?
I just saw that right before you called me.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, listen, A-Rod and J-Lo, you knew that wasn't happening.
Absolutely.
But Bill and Melinda?
Yeah, that's insane. And supposedly they're still going to work together at the foundation. Like, how is that going to work?
What could they be fighting about? What could they be fighting about? It's unbelievable, man. Nobody stays together these days.
Nobody. Oh, man. I'm sad for the Gateses, but who knows? Who knows what might come next?
George, by the way, I'm glad your name is up on the screen because if you asked me to spell it, I wouldn't have been able to. But since it's there.
So I'm going to start this thing the way we're going to dive right in. I'm going to start this the way we start every single interview. And this is going to be a trip for everybody because I know the answer I'm going to get. Scott Stanford, are you a leader?
Well, George, the short answer to that is absolutely not. I am the leader of no men. I've never been a leader. I've only been out for myself and myself only. But no, you know what? When it comes to leading, I'm not really like a give orders kind of guy. I just kind of lead by example. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like when I'm in a newsroom, I lead by example, hard work, consistency, you know, showing up early, leaving late, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are leadership qualities, but I'm not a guy who I'm not a VP of talent anywhere. I'm not a director of news, things like that. I just like to lead by example. And I think that's the best way to do it, you know, because no one would ever make me like a director or a VP in their right mind. So all I could do is just, you know, in my mind, show people the right way to do things and the right way to treat people. Is, you know, like I said, I lead by example. I never want anybody to come away from anything with me and say that guy's a total DB, if you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, no, I've never had the opportunity to lead my own group of people. But yes, it's leading by example is the way I like to do it.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I go back. We did last week a retrospective on the show. We did a retrospective on the show. And my first guest ever on episode 1 was Mike Del Giudice from Billy Joel's band, from Big Shot.
Yeah, sure, Mike.
Yeah, dude's a great guy, good friend of mine. And you know, it was such an interesting response to the question because this guy who goes out and performs in front of all these people has such an effect on people, right? Like Mike played my wedding 3 years ago.
Wow.
Big Shot played my wedding 3 years ago. And
did they sing Brenda Renetti had it already by the summer of 75?
Of course they did.
You know what's funny about that song, George? I asked this question to all Billy Joel, you know, cover bands who I've ever spoken to.
Yeah.
and you go back to your story in 1 sec. In that song, Brenda and Eddie got married in the summer of 75. And then they go through all this stuff with the carpets from Sears and the big water bed they had saved for a couple of years. And then it's Brenda and Eddie had it already by the summer of 75. So they're still in the same summer of 75. And I would love to ask Billy Joel what the hell he was thinking there, if it's like a mistake that he just went with the whole time. But how can that be? There's no timeline there. The timeline gets all screwed up once they, he says summer of 75 again.
Yeah,
So,
what I actually
maybe ask Mike next time.
I asked Mike about that song specifically because so I reached out to him. It's such a funny story with Mike. So I'm married for the second time now. When my first daughter was born with my first wife, this was 13. She's gonna be 13 next month. And we were coming up on the christening. I was in no place to hire Big Shot, but I reached out to their manager because I was like, I'd love to have Big Shot here. Anyway, so here we are all these years later where I reached out and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting married. Like, I'd love to have you guys. And we worked it out. And I sent this long, like, convoluted email just because I was so, like, excited about it, about how, hey, I'm Eddie, dude. Like, I'm Eddie. I was in Brenda and Eddie, and then we, it all fell apart, and I found my happiness afterwards and whatever. And we were bullshitting about that song. So it's so funny that you say that.
You go back to the diner, but you can never go back there again.
You never go back there again. And
listen, anyone who can be Mike Francesa's house band down at the shore, guy can't be all half bad, right?
Oh, he's a good dude. But it was funny because I asked him the same question, and this was sort of the genesis of this question starting for all my guests because his answer was so interesting. Like, we're on a show about leadership, and he was like, "No, man, I've never considered myself a leader." But we after all these episodes, we've sort of come to a place where leadership is just sort of how you treat people, how you get things done, right? And so for Mike, I was like, dude, you've touched so many people with just your words. I know, man, at my wedding, we had two really, really special moments where one of them was Mike's got this solo song, Mona Lisa, that was our wedding song. And another song that was a dedication to my sister-in-law that passed away a few years back. And two moments I'll never forget in my whole life. And I was like, if you're writing this music that's so special that can help people get through these tough times, man, that's a leader. So that's what I sort of want to ask you, man. You've always brought it, any type of entertainment that you do, whether it's sports play-by-play, whether it's anchoring the news, whether it's WWE stuff, whether it's Suki and Scott, man, you just bring this energy that just makes people so happy to hear what you have to say. And, if somebody could just escape for a few minutes to watch your show and just have a good time, man, I mean, that's a form of leadership there. That's putting out, your talent to sort of make people feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. And listen, George, first of all, I'm glad you stopped talking about your wedding and got back to me on this interview. But no, listen, you know what the thing is?
Speaking of my wedding.
Yeah, speaking of your wedding, I have such a good time doing what I do. And again, whether it's sports, whether it's, morning shows in New York, whether it's WWE, I have such a good time. And that's, when we do our Suki and Scott show on Facebook Live, that's like my escape from my own, personal hell where I forget about everything I have to do, anything, bills I have to pay, mortgage, things might be going wrong with the kids, whatever it is, for an hour at a time, I just escape from it. And, the fun I'm having hopefully radiates to everybody else. And, it was always such a, it always made me so proud when people would come up to me in the mall or whatever, when we were doing Pix 11, and women would come up to me and say, "Hey, I hate sports, but I love watching your sports cast." Or a husband would come up to me and say, "Oh, my wife can't stand sports, but she loves watching you. You make her laugh." And that's really, you're hitting the right spot and the right tone when you get in that position, when you get the non-sports people who are watching you just because you're going to give them something to chuckle at. Because really, in actuality, in these days, back in the old days, you got your sports information from your local nightly news because that was the only place you can get it from. Nowadays, by the time the 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock news comes on, by the time the sportscaster comes on, if you're a fan, you know what happened with your team already. You've either watched the game, you heard the game, you saw the highlights, you know what happened.
The hell just happened?
What happened?
Your demo reel just came on like out of nowhere.
My demo reel?
Yeah, I had it up on the website, and the thing just started playing out of nowhere.
Real? Let it play. That's probably more interesting. Which demo reel? I have 7,000 of them.
It's on the Suki and Scott website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a demo reel for every opportunity. Bar mitzvahs, weddings,
perfect,
sports, right? But yeah. So what I was saying, when it comes time for the 11 o'clock sports, everybody knows what it is. So instead of just giving someone highlights, which what 99% of the guys and girls do, you got to come at them with something fun and original, and give the people who happen to just stick around past the weather a chance to see you. And you put on a 4 minute show, gives them a chance to say, oh, you know what? I'm coming back tomorrow night for this guy too. But again, it's so much fun to do it and be in front of the camera, and have the opportunity to have some fun and interview big names and fun performers. And it's just, when you see the response and people are enjoying it and it's an escape for them for a little bit, there's no better feeling than doing that.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's nothing else I could do in this world. I'm not a mechanic, a landscaper. I can't do anything. So, to do that, it's really the only thing I know how to do is just be, a broadcaster, if you will, not tied to any specific niche, but anything you have me do, I could do it for you, and I'll enjoy doing it because that's what I love.
It's interesting you say that, and I'll jump ahead for a minute, but I've had this conversation. So I've actually had, you're the fourth, broadcaster that I've had on here. We've had Carol Silva. We had an incredible interview with her, and she and I have gotten so tight since her interview. We had Lisa Mateo. We had Sukanya. Now we have you. And so I've discovered that I have this thing with broadcasters. I find what you guys do just so interesting, especially on the news side of things, the anchoring side. It's just so interesting for so many reasons. But the one thing that I had to say to all of them was, I'm not just getting people that I can grab, right? Like, in terms of that, I'm getting people that I actually watched on the news when you talk about broadcasters. So specifically like Carol, Sukanya, when you talk about anchors, these are people that, as I watch the news, like, I know they're kind of in the thick of it with me. Like, they're, it's that local news where they're New York, right? Like,
right.
Carol's Long Island, and
right.
Suki from the Shaolin, right?
Yeah.
But
New Dorp High School,
right? So that speaks to me, right? So when I'm seeing like that national news where it's kind of like you're speaking to an entire nation and trying to pick little stories, that doesn't speak to me. But when I see the person that just I know is in it with me and that can, tell me the news while they're feeling it, or sort of give me a certain kind of vibe, while the news is being told, that to me is what draws me in. And so, I can get all my news on the internet, but I'll still turn on those people because it's important to me to feel that connection. When you talk about, like, I talked about with Suki and all three of them, I talked about, 9/11 and Superstorm Sandy and all of these different times that were just so heavy. But I specifically would watch those people give me the news because I wanted it. I wanted honesty, but I also didn't want a robot giving it to me. I want to feel it. You know what I mean?
Right. Because you're getting that emotional context as well. From someone who, is a local person, grew up in the area. So when you're talking about Hurricane Sandy and the places that have been destroyed, and, that's affecting you while you're on the air reading, the teleprompter, and things are coming over and you're seeing, oh my God, this place in Rockland or this place in Bergen or Staten Island. It's that local emotional context as opposed to a national newscast you know, a CNN anchor who is, you know, they'll give you the, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable, but they're not from the area, so it doesn't really affect them as it would if you know, we were on the air and we're talking about somewhere in Chicago,
sure,
or Des Moines, you know, a catastrophe. It's just, but if it's a local you know, event, a local happening, you definitely, you know, you want to be in touch with the local station. They're going to give it to you, you know, with that emotional context and delivery. So
and it was the same thing with sports when you were doing the sports on there. It was just a different way of approaching it, man. I remember watching you in the beginning. I was like, is this guy for real? Like, you know, it just like that bullshit facade wasn't there. Like, you were telling it to me like I would tell it to my friends, because back, you know, I remember being a teenager. I worked in a deli for years, and I would go after school, and we had Newsday or the Post. And when I took my break, I'd grab the newspaper, get my sandwich. I'm looking at the box score, the Knicks, the Yankees, whatever. And then that night, you know, I turned the TV on at 11 o'clock, 11:15. You know, check out that 5 minutes of sports, and that was my sports back before ESPN.com and everything.
Of course, yeah, of course. Before you could look at your phone and know what was going on.
Yeah.
But you know, the way I looked at it was I was entertaining myself, first of all. Second of all, entertaining the anchors in the studio with me to get the reaction out of them. Like when I was on Channel 4 NBC in New York with Sue, you know, Chuck and Sue, two legends.
Yeah,
Sue would sell my stuff to the hilt. You know, if I would sing or do a poem or, you know, a glove song, whatever it was. She would laugh her tootsies off and sell it to the moon. And that's what, if you can entertain the people in the studio, odds are you're entertaining the people who are watching as well. Because the people in the studio just sat through 48 minutes of bad news.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you can give everybody something to smile about, then you've definitely done your job. I don't listen. Anybody could sit in front of that camera, type in your highlights and read your teleprompter. You know, Yankees played the Brewers today, and, you know, here's your 3 highlights, and okay, let's go to the Knicks. Anybody could do that.
Yeah.
But to take that stuff and have some fun with it, and take the script and move it around, or put in a movie reference or a song reference or even a movie clip in between the highlight that makes fun of what somebody just did. It just gives you a little more of a creative outlet, and, you know, keeps your mind sharp. Because if that was the case, you could show up at 10:30 and go, oh, okay, here's our highlights. Here's here's the coach's sound. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
But we would literally sometimes for a 3-minute sportscast, you know, we'd sit there all day and just, you know, trying to think of something that you wouldn't see on any other sportscast.
Yeah.
A Bill Belichick press conference. We'd intertwine me sitting there in a fake, you know, press area, you know, like I'm leaning back, you know, like eating popcorn, asking Bill questions, and, you know, you pop in his answers. And it's just stuff like that's fun, you know, goofing around with Mr. G when he's doing his weather, and I would walk in with like a ladder and a light bulb, you know, and it was just, it was fun. You know, listen, as long as he wasn't talking about a serious storm on the way, and it was just another, you know, another kid, and the anchors would eat it up. Everybody on the set, and it just loosens even the stage managers and the producers, just loosens everybody up. And if you could do that a little bit, because again, when it comes down to it, we're not that important, right? We're not doctors. We're not curing any diseases. No lives are on the line. If I mess something up, nobody gets hurt. So it's just, you know, I always played it that way. It's something where I don't take what we do seriously, but I take what we do seriously as far as putting on a good product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if something goes wrong, you laugh it off, and tomorrow's another day.
Yeah, and you absolutely did, man. I'll tell you, I always appreciated. My dad used to watch you as well. I loved it. You know, I'm going to post a clip, guys, in the show notes, a link for a clip. But one of the funniest things I've ever seen you do was, I forget which show it was that you did this on, but you played a YouTube clip of a guy teeing up, playing golf. Just like
it took him forever to swing.
Took him forever to swing, and
then he missed the ball, right? Yeah, right. So here's the thing, right? And my producer would, you know, he would get in on this too, and we'd figure it out. So you have a video with a guy who took 45 seconds to swing at a golf ball and then he misses, right? So how do you make that better than what it is?
Right.
So I would go into the studio and get the guy, hey guys, we got to shoot a couple things. And they would think I was nuts because they didn't know how I was putting it into a video. And they would roll the camera. I would do my thing. And it's all right. You guys will see it on the 10 o'clock news. You'll see what we did. And that just made it, it gave you, it extended it out, made it longer, ate up more time.
Yep.
And just made it funnier. So you have that clip actually?
I have that clip. Yeah.
Oh, let me see. Yeah, go ahead, roll that. I love that.
Oh, I don't have. I'm going to put it in the show notes. Yeah.
All right. Let's do that again. All right. You have that clip actually?
Yeah, I'll have it in the show notes.
Nice. All right, roll the clip. Let's see it. There you go.
So let me go way back. So you are originally from Haverstraw, New York. Is that right?
I grew up on the mean streets of Rockland County, in Haverstraw, New York, and North Rockland High School kid.
Yeah.
Always in the suburbs of New York. And the beautiful thing is, I never had to leave town to start my broadcasting career.
Yeah.
Which very few people do that. And I started on small radio stations right outside New York City. Instead of going, to Butte, Montana, to be on the radio, I did it, in Westchester and Rockland, and that was my learning process.
Yeah. What was it like growing up in the Stanford house? Growing up in terms of like, not only how did you sort of make the decision to go into this direction as a career, but what kind of influences growing up did you have?
Well, I remember my dad had one of those illegal boxes. He was always watching the Spice Channel when I'm downstairs. He was always, watching the Spice Channel. But no, I'm just kidding. My father was also a radio guy. Back in the 50s, he was a DJ, the whole deal. So, from the time I was a little kid, I was running around. I thought I was Mean Gene Okerlund in the house, from WWE. I used to run, all right, Hulk Hogan, come on in this Monday night, Madison Square Garden, Hulk Hogan. And I would just be Mean Gene. I always wanted to be an announcer. And then I wanted to be Bob Barker because he was hanging out with all the beautiful women on The Price is Right. So I wanted to be a game show host. So from the time I was really little, I always wanted to be, with a microphone in my hand. And then, as a senior in North Rockland High School, one of our teachers forced me to host the senior talent show. And that was really the first time I was ever on, big stage because it was a really big school.
Yep.
And that just, from the feeling of that being in front of that live audience, it was phenomenal. And I went to college for broadcasting and just the whole progression. I got sidetracked by broadcast sales a little bit, but then I got back into the broadcasting on the on-camera side.
Right. And
I just kept going from there.
So how did the transition to sports happen?
You know what? It just happened. Like I said, I've always been I never considered myself to be a news anchor, a sports anchor, this, that, or this, that. Whatever it was in broadcasting, I could do. So I had done my local radio, WFAS in Westchester, RKL in Rockland, and I stopped. My brother and I started our own video production company. So we had a successful video production company where we would shoot infomercials and commercials, and I would be the host, the writer, the producer, and, we made nice money. And one day I got a call from a buddy of mine from Shadow Traffic, who used to do the traffic for CBS 880.
Yep.
And he said, hey, they're looking for an afternoon sports guy to do the sports on 880. I didn't need the job. You know what I mean? And whenever you don't need the job, you always get the job. Yeah. That's when you get it, when you don't need it. So I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to make a tape. Why not? Let's send it in. So I made a 3-minute radio demo of doing sports, but it was all shtick. The whole thing was shtick. I had a Sinatra song in there. I mean, but it was all audio.
This episode is sponsored by the new cohort of the Leadership Experience. Unconventional Leadership, brought to you by yours truly, the launch dad himself, George Andriopoulos. Our new cohort is starting soon, and not only do we still have the same 4 courses, that's right, the public thought leadership track, the career leader track, the entrepreneurship track, and of course the podcast experience. We have our first graduate level, up level, inimitable, the newest one-on-one leadership class. This is for not only if you have taken the leadership experience core class before and are ready to graduate to the newest level, but for those that have experienced leadership and want to take it to a new level, Inimitable is for you. I'm not even going to talk about it in this commercial. You're going to have to contact me. Check out theleadershipexp.com for details and to sign up for information. Inimitable is coming at you. DM me for more info. Later, guys.
So I used to play my clips and my movie tunes and, you know, all this stuff. And they, you know, they liked it. And I got the news director over at Fox 5 would listen to me on his way to and from work, because I would fill in for Jared Max in the mornings. You know, it was a whole, you know, you rotate around.
Sure.
So he was a big fan of mine. And before you knew it, I was auditioning at Fox 5, which was really an audition for UPN 9 because they own that channel at the same time.
Yep.
So I ended up being the sports anchor over there with Russ Salzberg for about 6 years. And then, you know, I moved over to NBC4 with Bruce Beck. And then I got recruited at Pix 11 to come anchor, you know, the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news with Tamsin. And then they restarted their sports department. So I did that. And then I got a call. I'm going in with Suki in the morning. So I did that. And it just, you know, the morning show took off. And next thing you know, we had different management every 5 minutes. So they blew that whole thing out. Suki ended up at Fox 5. I was there for like another year till I left. And the timing was right for us to get together and do the Suki and Scott show, which really started out as like a kind of a hobby. But it's snowballed into this, you know, monster show with, you know, great celebrities and performers. I mean, we're booked through like the middle of June now. And, you know, we have the movie companies and the PR people. Everybody's coming to us as one of their stops on their, you know, on the celebrity, you know, stops.
Yeah.
With the Tonight Show and everybody else. So it's been great. We're on a bunch of streaming sites. We have conversations every day with different broadcasting executives. So, you know, sooner or later, George, we're going to be somewhere. I know that.
No, I'm excited for you guys. I saw that, man, the second I started watching it, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be somewhere, like, very, very soon. But, you know, it's funny because today, just the way things work now, you look back at, like, when you first started in the industry and doing something that's streaming or even just, like, social media live. I mean, you guys have a huge following, man. It's not something you could do back in the day.
I'll tell you, it's been great, and it's been just a slow, steady rise. And Suki and I always talked about it. And we said, listen, no matter what, let's just do the show every day. We go out every night, be consistent. She can't make it, or, you know, I'll have somebody else on, fill in for her, but we keep it going. And there have been video. We just had a video last week. Stupid. The dumber the video, the bigger the viewership, George, yeah. I noticed. We had a video with this Phil and myself. Phil's another guy who's on the show, Phil Paz. Yep. He's like a viral sensation himself.
Philly Kid.
Phil and I, Philly Kid. We sang Knock 3 Times on the Ceiling by Tony Orlando. Yeah. He was in his car. I was in my car on his app. He sends it to me. I sing it with him. It turns into a duet. This thing in 4 days was 1.5 million. People. And it just, for some reason, just that, because we've done other songs before. Yeah. We'll get 70, 80,000 views. All of a sudden, this thing just kept ticking away and ticking away. And I saw the shares were going to, you know, 10,000, 15,000 shares. And it literally went around the world. I mean, we have comments and likes from people in Australia, the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, from Knock 3 Times by Tony Orlando. And it's all folks who are, you know, age 45 plus, mostly females.
Yeah.
And it's wild. You know, I always say that the dumber the video, the more people will watch it. And that just seems to be the case.
Well, they must have heard about your Copacabana rendition, and
her name was Lola. She was a showgirl.
Yeah, I remember there was a day. There was a day where you guys had the gateway open for fans to come up on screen. Dude. And when you did, I don't know if it was the after show or I was actually on, and you popped me on the screen, which is great. But you had there was a bunch of, let's say, you know, on the older side ladies that were popping on, and there was one in particular from down south. I couldn't catch my breath. She was like yelling at her daughter in the car.
Yeah. Oh boy,
that was amazing.
It's a whole new world out there, my friend. It's a
Let me tell you,
world.
I'm a huge, and I think I've heard you say this too, but I'm a huge Howard fan, huge Howard Stern fan.
Oh, the best, the best.
When I started this show, and by the way, let me put this out there now. Never ever have I ever made a comparison between he and me, or will I ever be him. But that being said, I modeled the way I do these interviews after his interviews. Dude, he's the best interviewer on the planet. He's the best. And when we get into the deep ones, you know, today was always going to be a little more lighthearted, but we get into the deep ones and we tell some stories. He's my inspiration in terms of like how you do this. But when you talk about like the whole show, right, and the value of just bringing something that's ridiculous on there, he set the standard for that. You know, he's proof. He's like the case study that the more ridiculous it is, the better the content.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny? When I was in college, I spent my first 2 years upstate New York at SUNY Cortland, right? Yeah. And they had a great radio station, WSUC. As a matter of fact, WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley and I were on the radio together up in Cortland. So Howard was on WNBC here in New York, and he wasn't really known nationally yet at the time, just in New York. And my father and I used to listen to him when I was a kid. So when I was in school, I kind of stole Howard's act and did it up at school with the women calling with their fantasies and the shtick and everything else. And I told him this, how I'm like, dude, I stole your whole act up in college. It was the #1 show on radio in my school. And I was like, it was the guy who was the quarterback of the football team and me.
Yeah.
You could date him or you could date me. I was like the Howard Stern of Cortland. And it was really just cool. People look forward to the show, you know, and I would just have people do all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was great, man. But and I would be done. Mick Foley was the DJ who would come on after me. And Mick, who, you know, for folks who don't know WWE, he went on to be a huge, you know, Hall of Famer. And I'll never forget the day he said to me, he's like, dude, I'm leaving school. I'm going to become a wrestler. And, you know, Mick's body, he's not necessarily built like a wrestler. And I was like, yeah, dude, good luck with that. Wish you the best. Next thing you know, a couple of years later, I see the guy, this Cactus Jack on TV. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, that's Mick. Son of a gun did it. And next thing you know, he's one of the biggest draws in WWE history.
And a great guy too.
A great guy, yes. A smart guy, you know, with books, the whole deal. But yeah, you know, Howard Stern there's not even anyone who will ever compare again to what he's softened up in his old age. But in his heyday, when it was him against the man, forget it. Forget it, man. It was nothing better. Nothing better than that.
You touched on Foley and wrestling, so I want to shift to that for a minute. So, and speaking of Foley, I got a great Foley story for you. So, years ago, it's 10 years ago now. Shit, crazy. 10 years ago now, there was the long and short of it was I met this very young girl, 15-year-old. We actually used to go to the same martial arts school together. And those that listen to the show already know the story. But come to find out one day, I heard she got sick, and a couple of days later it was cancer and the whole thing, and a bunch of us banded together to start a nonprofit to aid her and kids like her. And The rest is sort of history. This was a difficult time in my life, right? During that time period, I was in the middle of a divorce and everything. And so I got very close with the family throughout this process. I started dating her sister down the road, and we got married, and we're married now.
Nice. Nice.
So anyway, so Shannon, that young girl who was my sister-in-law, unfortunately, we lost her a couple of years after this all started. But right before she passed, you know, she knew she was terminal, and she wanted to have a big send-off party, big 17th birthday party, and the whole deal. And I reached out to Mick. I reached out to anybody I could reach out to. And this dude showed up. We had this thing at the Cherry Valley Country Club in Garden City.
Came through for you.
Not only did he come through, Scott, I saw him across the room. It was like halfway through the party. He makes eye contact and he motions over to me, brings me in another room, and wanted to do the thing down low, bring her in another room. He didn't want to take any attention away from her, and it was right when he wrote his first children's book, and he gave her a signed copy, went through the best. I mean, it was a moment I'll never ever forget, and I'll never forget what he did for us. But you started with WWE back in 2009, right?
2009. I started there literally almost the same week I started at NBC4. It was really weird, you know, talk about having a good week. I started at 4. And when I was at, you know, I'll make this, you know, short as possible. When I was the sports guy at Channel 9, UPN 9, Friday night SmackDown had just come to the UPN network. So as the guy in New York, the sports guy in New York, they wanted me. So UPN made a deal with WWE. They were going to have me, you know, each Friday night, all the UPN stations, SmackDown would air from 8 to 10 p.m. and then the news comes on at 10. So, you know, how do you keep that WWE audience for the news at 10? It's not really the same audience. So I had to have a package, a feature piece, wrestling related, to be in that Friday night 10 o'clock newscast, so they could tease it in the show during SmackDown. You know, coming up on the UPN 9 news at 10, you know, Hulk Hogan breaks an arm. We'll have or, you know, Scott hangs out with the Bella Twins or something like that. So those pieces that I would do aired on every UPN 9 newscast, every UPN newscast in the country. So I worked very closely with WWE as the guy. You know, they were very nice with me, giving me interviews and people. And, you know, I'd go to the Meadowlands when they would have a show, and I would be in a room, and they would just keep bringing in superstars to do interviews with. It was crazy. It was like, you know, Big Show would come in, then the Bella Twins, then Kelly. And I was like, oh my God, this is like being at Scores on a Friday night. This is unbelievable.
Except for Big Show.
yeah. Except for Big, you know, Gail Kim, Eve, you know, Maurice, who's married to Miz now. I mean, all these beautiful women. But regardless, I would get like 10 or 11 packages all at once, and then we would put them together. So when the time came, they were looking for a new studio host. I got a call, asked to send a tape, and the demo I made was really of all of me working with it almost looked like I worked for the company already.
Sure.
Of me interviewing their John Cena, CM Punk, all kinds of great stuff. Me in the ring, doing things at shows. And I get a call from the main guy back at the time, and he says, listen, we got about 300 tapes for a studio position. We narrowed it down to 5. Vince McMahon hated all of them. Vince hated all 5. And he said, and he remembered that I had just sent him a tape. Hey, we have a guy who's doing this. Take a look, Vince. Vince looked at the demo tape and he said, get this guy in here now. And so I went in, I did the audition, which was, you know, really cool stuff with Joey Styles and doing play-by-play.
Yeah.
And I got the gig. And next thing I know, I'm doing studio shows for WWE. Before you know it, they're calling me to come do, you know, play-by-play on the road for WWE Superstars, which aired on, you know, WGN at the time.
Yeah.
And it, you know, so for 3 years of my life, I was on a plane every Monday and Tuesday unless it was local, doing, you know, WWE superstars. And then on Monday Night Raw, it was, you know, the interview guy.
Yeah.
Backstage, you know, we would switch off being the interview guy. I was a little too tall. You know, I'm a little too tall, so I'd have to like kneel down for some of the guys because you always have to make the superstar look big.
Sure.
That's why now all you'll see are very small females who stand and look
Yeah.
up at the superstars. But it was so much fun, man. A lot of traveling, you know, hit every city in America, and it was a lot of fun. And then when I went to Pix on a full-time basis, I ended up just doing studio shows in Stanford, and always had both going consecutively. Never the two got in the way of each other.
Sure.
And it always just happened to work out. And it was great. It was great. I had so much fun. And 12 years later, here I am. People have come and gone. And I show up every day like it's like, you know, I'm a kid with the enthusiasm and consistent good television.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed a day of work at WWE in 12 years. I think I had food poisoning one night. I couldn't make it to the Raw pre-show. And I'm like, guys, if I can't get out of my bed,
Yeah.
you know, if I can't get out of my bed, I got a problem.
Right.
But it's just, again, it's that thing where you don't want to miss it. You know, you feel bad if you have to miss it. And I would always work my vacations around, you know, Monday and Tuesday. So if I had to go on vacation with my family, it's, you know, Wednesday to Sunday.
Sure.
And I'd never to miss WWE. And 12 years later, it's just, you know, like I said, a lot of on camera talent has come and gone. I show up every day, consistent. I'm good to the producers. I help the producers, and I give them exactly what they need. And regardless of the show and the importance of the show, because some are important, some aren't important, but you have to get them done anyway.
Yep.
Somebody put a lot of work into producing that show and writing that show and getting the materials for that show. I treat every show like it's top-notch, #1 show at that particular time, because that's how that producer feels about the show that they just put together and that they have to go edit afterwards.
Sure.
So, and I worked with some people who would, you know, complain on the set, hey, this writing is terrible, this is terrible. And it's like, hey, man, these guys they're working hard on this. Just, you know, help them out, give them some positive. Hey, maybe we should say this instead of this. You know, there are people I've worked with. If you ask them to do something more than once, they freak out. Well, that was good. Why do we have to do it again? And I would just look at them like, that's not going to work, dude. It's not going to work. And sure enough, you know, people have come and gone. And like I said, you show up, especially at WWE, they don't care how good you are or how popular you are. If you're hard to work with,
gone.
Or the producers don't like working with you, eventually you will be gone.
Yeah.
So I always made it my mission to, like I said, show up on time, give you my best shot every time out. Because you know what? With that too, you never know when Vince McMahon or someone at his level says, hey, let me see what Stanford's doing right now. Just send me a tape of his. And if it's a day where you're not on your best and he happens to look at it, you're not getting a shot at anything.
Yeah.
So I can honestly say you could pick any show I've done in the last 12 years, throw a dart at it, and I'll use it as a demo. Just send it to them. That's just the way you have to be. But WWE is a lot of fun. So it's a lot of work. It's a fun place to work, though.
Yeah.
And the fans are phenomenal. The fans make you feel like a rock star.
Yeah.
Like a total rock star.
Yeah.
It's just that's been an incredible ride too, you know.
And it's crazy because when you first started, I mean, they had already gone to a different level, right? You're talking about like once the Attitude Era happened and all that. I mean, they skyrocketed. But then in terms of like the legitimacy of the platform, because you know back in the day it was wrestling. Oh, wrestling's fake and whatever bullshit. And I've been a fan since I'm a kid. But you know that once you get to a level where now, like I remember around the time you started, that's when they were first starting to talk about the WWE network and all that happening. And by the way, right, because I remember always just believing in the company as a company. Forget about the entertainment aspect of it.
Yeah.
They, in reality, when you look at it, they revolutionized streaming entertainment. They were the first ones, besides like the Netflixes and stuff, to take an entire platform and develop a streaming service of its own. Like, it's insane.
The funny thing is that the WWE network, when I was there and they started talking about it, it was originally supposed to be a TV network, like, you know, Yes Network, MSG, any of those. And for, you know, from what I read, I know it was the time when Oprah had the own network and she lost a ton of money and so on and so forth. And, you know, you have pay-per-views, which changed the whole concept of everything. So, you know, I guess the powers that be thought they go with the streaming service. But had it been on television, we were talking about me doing like a Scott Van Pelt type of show, but I think like morning show.
Yeah.
Where social, all the bells and whistles of everything, talking about this crazy studio. And it was going to be a live, you know, here's the news of the day. Here's this. Here's John. Let's bring in John Cena. All kinds of stuff. And once it went to nonlinear and more of an on-demand type of situation, you know, all the ideas change and go out the window.
Sure.
But that's what I think would have happened. They were looking at like a Sports Center scenario, but WWE, which I still think to this day would still be pretty cool. But it's, you know, it's a lot of money to produce and studio, the whole deal. But had it been a television station that you would flick to on your TV, it would have been a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, the way it went, I mean, watching the genesis of that like even all of a sudden, like ESPN starts doing spots on wrestling, which was like, didn't happen back in the, I know Coach was there and everything, but
Coach.
You know, they're covering WWE all of a sudden, and you're watching like the contracts when they're changing networks and they're getting bigger and bigger, and now they're on Peacock. And I mean, you know, it is a powerhouse right now. And I want to hear your take on this. When you see people like, you know, obviously The Rock, but you have John Cena, Dave Bautista, Hogan back in the day, going out there and sort of, you know, still married to wrestling to a degree in terms of like the fan base and always believing in the product, and then going out there and just becoming their own entertainment powerhouses. How good is that for the industry in and of itself?
Well, listen, you know, again, social media is a big proponent of that. And, you know, The Rock is his own entity and John Cena was his own brand. And, you know, you didn't have that back in the day, right? Can you imagine Bruno Sammartino, you know, Pedro Morales and all those guys, Chief Jay Strongbow, doing social media. I mean, it's incredible. You know, it's incredible. And, you know, when you look at the platforms, you know, WWE's YouTube has, you know, it's like 70 million viewers.
Yeah.
And their Facebook is 70, you know, millions of followers. So, you know, to offer, I mean, look at the money just to offer an advertiser the opportunity to reach that kind of audience. You don't get that anywhere with television. Television can't even come close to that. But it's, you know, those guys have really taken it to another level. And, you know, you look at The Rock's social media, you know, the guy's got, you know, 70 million people following him on Twitter and things like that. So it's just, the one thing about social media that I don't like with WWE is that it's lifted up the curtain way too far. That whole mystique of characters and character development goes out the window when you see, you know, two opposing people doing a TikTok together, you know what I mean? And things like that. It kind of, you know, you always like, that's what was always so good about The Undertaker until just recently, right? He always stayed in character until he was just like, you know, all right, listen, let's screw it. I'm out.
Officially done. Yeah.
Right. This is me. I'm just a normal guy. But again, you know, you know who would have been great back, and he's great now, was the Iron Sheik.
Cheeky baby.
Imagine I mean, he's amazing now in his old age.
Yeah.
But imagine him, back 30 years ago.
Oh my God.
It would have been amazing. Yeah.
I want to shift before we start wrapping up. I want to talk a little bit about, since we're talking about leadership, we got to talk about family a little bit. So, married, 2 kids, right?
Yes, I have a young lady in college finishing up her sophomore year, and I have an 11-year-old daughter, who's she's a character also. She's unbelievable.
What kind of, when we talk about leadership, and again, we've talked about the definition in what you do in leadership and just going out there and putting the consistent hard work in and making people happy. What kind of lessons have you learned from being a husband and being a father in order to make you a better leader out there?
Oh, well, the lesson I've learned, George, is to not get involved with anything and to stay downstairs on the couch with the remote control. And just, let the female drama play out upstairs with the ladies. No, listen, you know what? I try to give my daughter guy advice, the one in college. At our age, we, as a little bit of a player back in my younger days, I've been through every situation when it comes to dating. Some that I wasn't so great with, some that people who were, trying to get rid of me. I've been through it all. And I try to give my daughter you can only give them the advice to take.
Yep.
And sometimes they will. Most of the times, what do you know? You're a 50-year-old guy. What the hell do you know?
Sure.
Well, it turns out we know everything that you don't know. But it's, when it comes to education, we kind of let them, we're not the helicopter parents. It's like, listen, man, you're in college now. You can either, you get good grades or don't get good grades. So, it's going to affect you as far as, what you could do right out of college. But listen, this day and age, you don't even need to go to college to have a job these days. There's so many. I always tell everybody, I said, when the kids, when they're in high school and they're seniors, and they're going nuts about what college they're getting into, and everybody's freaking out. They didn't get into this one, and they got into this one. Should I go here? Should I go there? And for them, it's 90% about which school they're going to have the most fun at, and 10%, some of them are real serious about what they're going to do in life. And I always say, listen, unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a NASA engineer, does it really matter what college you go to these days? Right. You come out with your degree, try to find an internship, right? Because it's really, as you make relationships, that's going to help you move along, right? Because someone's going to be just as qualified as you are, even more qualified than you are. If somebody through your father or through an internship already knows you, you're going to get the job over that more qualified person, most likely.
Yep.
So I've always been, I'm not a crazy, I'm not the guy to come to for punishment. My daughters never get punished by me. My wife hates me for that. But I don't have that kind of stuff in me. I'm like I'm the buddy. I'm not the discipline. I'm not the disciplinarian. Whenever my phone rings, it's usually for money. And I know my role, right? The Rock says, shut your mouth and know your role. So I just have to listen, if I keep the sink clean in my house and I keep my clothes off the bed, I stay out of trouble.
You're good.
I stay down here in my basement. And when it comes to, I'm a really good father. I spend a lot of time with my daughters when they were 11, 12, 13, till they don't want to hang out with you anymore.
Yeah.
I spend a lot. My job's always allowed me to spend time with my kids and never miss the important functions, which was always great. I never had, I was either working nights or early mornings, and I never had to miss a function with my kids. And I think that's important because they'll always remember. I always tell my daughters, I'm always, listen, you're going to remember that you got to hang out with your father a lot more than I did, going to the movies and going for lunches and amusement parks and anything else we can get our hands on, Chuck E. Cheese, Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
And, you know, don't tell anybody, but I have just as much fun as they do.
Yeah.
But so it's, yeah, I mean, as far as leadership, it's, you know, I let my wife lead and I just kind of agree with her and just try and make some money so we can stay in the house.
Well, that's good. That's good leadership advice to me.
Yeah. But she'll tell you I'm a great husband. My kids will tell you I'm a good father. And, you know, that's all I go with it and try and it's the same thing as business, right? I just show up, I stay consistent and just try to be good. I try to treat everybody as with respect and I try to tell everybody, don't let the little crap bother you. It doesn't mean anything. You know, when my daughter calls from college and she's crying about some BS, it's like, dude, really, what is this going to mean tomorrow?
Yeah.
So I try to just with work and home, don't let the little things make you crazy because you'll get crazy.
Yeah.
And none of it's worth it. And by the next day you realize what did I waste all that time for?
Yeah.
So I have no idea what I just said, but hopefully
you said
it made
something.
sense.
All right. Before we hit the big three, I want to mention to everybody again, the Suki and Scott show. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Every week, 7:30.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7:30 on Facebook Live. Then we send it out the next day to like 10 different streaming platforms. But the live show we like to do on Facebook to get that audience interaction.
Yeah.
So yeah, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7:30.
Perfect.
A lot of fun.
But before the big three, what's next, man? What is going on in the professional life of Scott Stanford?
I don't know, bro. Like I said, you know, I have more things going on that I don't get paid for than anyone I know. But
including this.
Including this show, by the way.
You're welcome.
They tell me if I keep doing what I'm doing, things will hit and big things will happen. So the Suki and Scott show has a lot of meetings going on, a lot of potential things going on, and the only thing I know is that every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be there putting on a show with celebrities and performers. That's the only thing that's a definite. Other than that, I don't know, you know, what's going to happen, but it doesn't happen unless you shoot your shot, they say.
That's it.
And that's what we're doing right now. We're shooting the shot and we're doing it 3 nights a week, and content is king. And you never know, man. You uncover the right stone, and things can happen very quickly. They have happened real quickly over the last year. So, you know, who knows where we'll be this time next year, hopefully on somebody's, you know, network or cable TV station, but we'll see. You know, the opportunities are endless.
Love it. You guys are killing it. Love the show. All right.
Thank you, bud.
Let's hit the big three.
The big three from the Launchcast.
Go ahead. What is this big three?
The big three. I'm going to throw out some stuff. You're going to give me your top 3 quick, concise answers for each thing. Fun stuff for you. Ready?
Go ahead.
All right. 3 best WWE talkers of all time.
Oh, that's easy. Let's see. Number 1's got to be Paul Heyman. Number 2, I'm going to go Jesse the Body Ventura. And number 3's kind of a toss-up. You got to throw Lou Albano in there, maybe a tie with Freddie Blassie. I think that's what, but Paul Heyman, you know, he's head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, everything else is just, you know, is just fodder from there, but definitely Paul, Jesse the Body, and he was great with Vince McMahon. And then I would go, you know, Freddie Blassie, Lou Albano, Grand Wizard, all those guys kind of coming in right around that 3rd spot.
Are we going to get an honorable mention for the Long Island IC?
Well, listen, one of the finest shows in WWE history.
That's
right. Some of my finest moments.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. All right. 3 best. So another tough one. 3 best technical wrestlers of all time.
Oof. Technical wrestlers of all time. All right. You know what? No, that's actually pretty easy because you got 2 right now who are phenomenal. AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. 2 amazing technical wrestlers. And then, you know, if you look back, and again, it was a different time, but, you know, you could throw Bruno Sammartino in there. Was a great Bob Backlund. let's give Bob Backlund.
Bob
a number
Backlund,
3
yes.
spot.
Well done.
That was great, right? Backlund, till he, I don't know, he turned into like this lunatic Backlund.
Turned into a cartoon character.
Yeah, he turned it, but boy, back in the day, man, in the mid 80s, that guy was good. He was good.
Yeah. Give me your 3 most memorable moments as an anchor, as a news anchor.
Oh, geez.
On air, I'll say.
Anchor.
On air.
Wow. Most memorable. Well, that would have to be from the morning show, I would think. We've had so many celebrities that came in. There was one day Suki and I spent 6 hours on the desk from 6 in the morning till 12 noon covering a spring snowstorm that we had. Like this once in a lifetime, end of April snowstorm.
Yep.
And we literally sat there with all the governors from the 3 states and different people. That was pretty cool. God, there's so many, George, just so many memorable moments. God, if I looked at our demo reel, I could probably see them all go through my head. But
well, let me shift it then to make it easier then. Instead of 3, I know we've talked about so many of like the lighthearted moments that just make people smile and everything. But as a news anchor, have you ever had any of those just heavy moments? I talked with Suki and I talked with Carol Silva and Lisa Mateo about
well, they were on the desk at 9/11.
Yeah.
I wasn't even at Channel 9. I was at CBS 880 for 9/11 doing sports.
Yep.
But as far as that goes, we had, if you can remember, not too far back around 2016, there was a bomb that went off. The guy with the pressure cooker bomb.
Oh yeah.
Near Hoboken, I think it was. I know that was like, because you're doing something fun. When breaking news hits, you got to switch on a dime. And I remember, and that train derailment at Hoboken Station, if you remember, like 2017 spring of this, went into the station off the tracks, was a crazy time. But there have been some smaller ones, but I was never on the desk for that crazy. There was one time I know they brought Tamsin and I in on a Sunday when the Metro North train crashed. Ended up going around that turn at like 70 miles an hour, and a bunch of people died up in Westchester, the Bronx area. That was like 6 hours, but I never had that crazy 9/11 or a Hurricane Sandy. I was always, for Hurricane Sandy, I was doing sports at NBC.
Yeah.
And, there are times where I was like, boy, I'm glad I'm doing sports right now, because I'd hate to be sitting out there for this. But it's just my whole experience doing the morning show was phenomenal. I mean, like I said, you're sitting there doing a story, you go to commercial break. Cheryl Ladd walks in from Charlie's Angels. Like women I had posters of when I was a kid would walk in, and there they are. Actresses and actors and celebrities of, from all walks of life. It's just really cool. You don't know who's coming in from one minute to the next. And you have 5 minutes in the commercial to get ready. But we were always great at that. So, I'd love for one day to be back doing it with her. But for now, our show is kind of like Kelly and Ryan meets the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect spot for us.
Yeah, guys, check that out. 7:30, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Unbelievable show. And they have incredible guests all the time. I stole one of your guests for my other podcast, Key Lewis. I heard Key, and I messaged him. I'm like, dude, you got to come on our new podcast, Fatherhood. Oh, man. Amazing. He did his whole
very good.
Mo Vagina bit.
yeah, the Mo Vagina. I was like, Sook, I got to remember this. Mo Vagina.
Guys, Scott Stanford, check him out, the Suki and Scott Show Facebook Live. Scott, thank you so much for being here, buddy. I appreciate you so much.
You got it, George. Thanks, pal.
Thank you, buddy. I'll put you back in the green room while I sign off, and I'll talk to you. Hang on a sec.
All right.
The virtual green room. Guys, another episode of the Launchcast. Thank you guys for joining me. You know where to find us. Catch us every single Monday morning, but this one's coming out on a Tuesday. Every single Monday morning, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, TuneIn, Stitcher, all of them. Thank you for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.
Into the black hole.
Thanks for listening to the Launchcast today. Please make sure to subscribe to this feed wherever podcasts are available. Follow me, George Andriopoulos, at Launchpad CEO on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And make sure to visit our website, guys, thelaunchcast.com. Looking forward to the next episode. See you soon, guys.